This is Debbie Potts, your host of the Low Carb Athlete podcast. And today's episode, it's just me going down another one of my rabbit holes to understand more tools and tricks to improve the aging process. So today we're going to dive into how genetics can help us personalize our longevity program. So let's dive in and learn something new.
Welcome to the Low Carb Athlete Podcast, where we focus on discussing topics to help you burn fat, optimize health, and improve performance in life and sports. Transform the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Debbie Potts.
Hey guys, it's Debbie, and I just wanted to give you a quick little message from one of our sponsors, Element. It's spelled LMNT, but pronounced Element. If you haven't heard about this, Element is a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything you need and nothing you don't. That means there's a lot of salt with no sugar, and it's formulated to help anyone with their electrolyte needs and is perfectly suited for those doing a keto, low carb, or paleo diet. And I think this is great for athletes, especially in the summertime and when you're training in warmer climates. Element contains a science-backed electrolyte ratio of 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium. None of the junk, no sugar, no coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers. That's it. I like the unsweetened one because the other flavors do have a little stevia, but stevia doesn't do well in my body. So I prefer the unsweetened Element. And I like the packets because I can throw them in my bike bag when I go on a long bike ride or when traveling. And I can just dump a packet in my water. And it keeps me so much more hydrated. Because remember, we don't sweat out water. We sweat out minerals. So check it out. You've got a nice little gift from them if you use our discount code DRINKELEMENT. I'll put the link in the show notes. But using the code Low Carb Athlete, you get a free gift with purchase. You get a free Element sample pack with any order when you order with Low Carb Athlete on our special URL code. So support the podcast, support Element. It's backed by science and we love what they're doing. So try it out. So I am a constant learner. I just love to continue my education. And the new program I signed up for this year, January 2024, goes until June of this year. It is with Wild Health. I'm doing their Wild Health Precision Medicine Fellowship Program for the next 6 months. So you may hear a little bit more about genetics and how we can personalize our program to improve our aging process. A personalized health plan for optimal well-being. Wild Health offers precision medicine. It's a genetics-based approach to personalized care, informed by biometrics, genomics, lifestyle factors, and they have health plans that include individualized recommendations for diet, exercise, sleep, mental health, disease reduction, and more. And I am actually getting to go through the program myself as a client. So stay tuned for my results, and we'll go over that in a podcast with one of the doctors from Wild Health. So learn more on wildhealth.com or continue listening to my podcast. Tuesdays, I interview a guest, and then Thursdays, I just go down different rabbit holes, as today, looking at different genetics that can improve our aging process as VO2 max markers and how best we can improve our VO2 max number by learning what type of training would be best suited for us as a unique individual. All right, guys, how can you improve your VO2 max? This is a big topic lately because of Peter Attia and his book, Outlive, that I've been reading. And as you know, I did PNOE metabolic testing a year ago. I purchased it finally, but before that, 10 years, I did New Leaf metabolic testing. And part of the metabolic efficiency test is finding out where you burn fat, the most fat, and the carbohydrates, fuel source, calories, and figuring out your zones and breathing frequencies and all that. But the big thing people talk about to do a metabolic test is VO2 max. And we want to understand why this number is the best marker for longevity. So I've been diving into that in different podcast episodes on Thursdays and blog posts of different research articles kind of asking different questions on how we test it. Why should we test it? Shouldn't we look at metabolic health markers, how to improve those numbers? So it's VO2 max just isn't the only thing you want to look at improving. First of all, we test the VO2 max as with a Pinoy metabolic test or with a sports exercise phys lab, and you get a number. You do a test, you push yourself to your maximum, you find out what your max heart rate is, your VO2 max, and you figure out your 5 training zones, your metabolic crossover point, all that. Then what? This is what I do, and this is what I think I do differently than a lot of people doing the testing. They just give you the numbers. Here's the information. Go improve it. Me, I always want to know a little more. I want to understand why, and I want to create goals, action items for you, or have you work on creating goals to get this number improved. So we can identify your areas of opportunity. What areas do you need more work on to improve your VO2 max, to improve your metabolic crossover point, so you're burning more fat at longer duration. So that zone 2 is going to change. Now, as I go into this wild health genetics-based personalized or precision medicine, it makes me curious of, all right, well, if we're all 99% the same, that 1% we're different, our genetics impact how we should fuel, train, and perform. So our exercise, our nutrition, our lifestyle habits. Epigenetics we go into. Personalized health plans for optimal well-being. We can find out all this information. Great. But what are you going to do about it? And how are you going to improve that program, that VO2 max number, so you are improving your aging process? So I think for sure in your 40s, 100% when you're 50, you should start thinking ahead. You could get away with things when you're 20s and 30s. And then 40s, females, we start to get perimenopausal 10 years before we hit menopause. And then we hit 50. And I always say, don't blame the aging process, embrace it. Change how you train, change how you eat, when you eat, why, how, and change your exercise program. For not just reasons of boredom and being consistent and getting more results by changing your program every month, but things change as we age, especially for females. And then we're focusing on setting ourselves up for success as our future self. So when we are 70, 80, 90, 100 years old, we need to plan now. And Peter Attia talks about this. I really love this part of his book. He talks a lot, shares his story. And longevity, or he calls it medicine 2.0, is how we have had things. And he's talking about what I love. This is kind of what's brought me to doing wild health and continuing being a practitioner, not just being a personal trainer and a triathlon run coach for clients. I want to be more. And it's that holistic method, that approach. But Peter talks about medicine 3.0. So if we started working on our nutrition, exercise, lifestyle habits now and looking at our genetics, you're going to know how to start improving your future self today. And we can see if you are going to be type 2 diabetic by looking at certain genetics, certain lab work, getting some data now. And in medicine 3.0, how we should look at things is doing what we can do now to prepare our future self, versus our current medicine program, medicine 2.0. We are getting help when we are sick, when we get diabetes, when we have heart disease, when we have cancer. How do you treat that? Rather than medicine 3.0, how do we prevent getting that? So instead of treating what you already have, let's not even get there. I don't want to have Alzheimer's. I don't want to have dementia. And if you've had a parent that passes away, I think that's what's really changed me the last year and a half, is watching my dad, what happened to him, and watching what happened in the hospital was the worst thing. How the doctors, 3 doctors, he had a heart doctor, cancer doctor, and kidney doctor, listening to them, how they work with patients and how they don't communicate and how they're just treating symptoms. It is unbelievable. And how they just give you meds every day. And if you can't sleep at night, they tie you down. And then if you can't sleep, they give you medication to calm you down. I mean, it's just freaking ridiculous. So we need to take ownership of our health now and look at your genetics. Get Wild Health or get the DNA company. Get some data and get the blood chemistry test. Do a food sensitivity leaky gut test, the Wheat Zoomer, the Cyrix Lab, something to give you information so you can live your best life, your second half of your life. I don't understand why people don't understand this and wait until they're sick. Because we shouldn't, by the time you're sick, you already had problems, red flags, 5-10 years. Similar to when I got my adrenal exhaustion, March 2013, you don't realize that that was kind of the end point, that I was living life as a race 5-10 years before that. And finally I broke. And that's when I wrote my book, Life is Not a Race, It's a Journey. That's why I wrote it, to share what happened to me to other people. Don't have to go through this. That kind of gives me my purpose of what I do. So my blog, I put together the research into how genetics can help personalize your longevity program. So identifying genetic variants associated with VO2 max, remember that's your maximal oxygen uptake, can provide insights into individuals' potential response to various training regimens and help tailor exercise programs for improved performance. While there is not a single definite list of genetic SNPs that directly determine the best way for you to improve your VO2 max. Remember, you get the test done. That's the first step. Next step is, what do you do with this number and make it better next time? Because we want to retest you every 3 months, or for sure every 6 months. So if you want to improve this best marker for longevity, we need to figure out what you should be doing to get that number higher next time, right? So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach, because we want to look at what SNPs, what are your current program, what's your availability for time, female, where you are in your hormone cycle. All that, we can really personalize it. So the best way to improve your VO2 max, we will look at several genes that might impact your aerobic fitness, your endurance performance. So some things we've looked at, and I've did this with the DNA company reports. You can get that great podcast I did with them. Some key variants associated with VO2 max and endurance performance. So there's the ACE gene, and that's a common polymorphism known as ACE ID. You can get that information on even 23andMe. You can get the raw data and put it into a different program. Then there's another gene called ACTN3 gene, and that's going to look at a protein found in fast twitch muscle fibers. And that can help us get information if you are better suited to do more sprint power-oriented performance. If you're RR genotype, if you're XX genotype, you may be more prone to perform best in endurance sports. So there's interesting information. Again, it's not this is what you are going to do, but it's epigenetics, looking at how you might best change your program if you're training for endurance sport, or if you're training for improved VO2 max, or if you're training for strength. So we also look at the PPAR gene, the AMPD one. There's NOS3 gene that you've heard a lot about probably, because that's to do with nitric oxide synthase. It plays a role in cardiovascular function. And this variant in this gene has been associated with VO2 max and exercise performance. And there is another gene called HIF1A, and this is a gene that's connected with regulating oxygen homeostasis. So if you have a polymorphism in this gene, this has been linked to endurance performance in response to hypoxic training. And then there's another big word you hear a lot about. This gene is PPARA gene, and that is regulating fatty acid metabolism and endurance adaptation. Variants in this gene may influence response to endurance training and your fat metabolism. So that's why genetics is so fascinating to me, because we can really personalize, and that's what Wild Health does with their precision medicine, what food plan works best for you. And then you tie that together with, say, Vibrant Wellness, Wheat Zoomer, and food sensitivity test, and then a gut test, and looking at just blood chemistry. It's pretty cool. So genetic influence on VO2 max is complex, and it's a newer way of thinking, but looking at how environmental factors is, of course, your training, your nutrition, your lifestyle programs, we call this epigenetics, can determine individual differences in your aerobic capacity. So genetic testing for these variants can provide some insight, but training programs should be personalized, of course, and consider the multiple factors beyond genetics. So it's just one piece of the puzzle, just clues we're collecting to put the whole puzzle together for you to figure out that personalized program. So more data we can collect, as even your Oura Ring and your Garmin reports, and looking at your heart rate and what you have been doing, putting this all together just makes it so much more fun, especially as a coach. So determining the most effective training program for improving your VO2 max as we age involves, of course, considering various factors as genetic, your fitness level, your health, your blood chemistry panel, training history, all that, as well as what you're doing, what you have time for, as well as nutrition. So we want to look at what genetic SNPs are going to impact, your mitochondria and your oxygen homeostasis. And there's other markers as IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor that plays a role in muscle growth and repair. The ACE, the ACE gene, as we talk about, is an important one for endurance performance. That's often debated. And the FOXO3 gene, you hear all this from Dr. Rhonda Patrick talking a lot about, which she has a genetic report. I think you can upload your raw data if you look on her website. Found My Fitness is her podcast. But variants in the FOXO3 gene we hear a lot about because that's linked to longevity and may influence muscle function and adaptation to exercise in older adults. So pretty cool. And then IL-6 gene, interleukin 6, this is involved in inflammation and exercise response. So this may affect your muscle repair and adaptation to different training intensities. So super fun. Just look at it. It's just, as I said, one piece of the puzzle. So we want to look at the holistic method, looking at your nutrition, your sleep, your stress management, your movement mobility, your nutrition, nutrient-dense food intake, looking at your gut health, before that, digestion, motility, all of that we need to look at. So that was a couple of the SNPs, main ones. I said that again on here. And then looking at what blood chemistry markers to look at. So looking at the lipid panel, your glucose, insulin, we want to ask for. Your doctors won't do it, so make sure you're getting your insulin every time, and it should be 1 to 5. You want to get your CRP, and that should be low too. You want to make sure you're tracking those. Micronutrient testing, looking at your levels of essential vitamins, minerals, antioxidants to identify deficiency that may impact your energy metabolism, muscle function, overall health. And then gut testing, of course, I always think is important for everyone to do, is analyzing the markers of your microbiome, intestinal permeability, which is leaky gut, inflammation, if you have high LPS, endotoxicity, and that toxicity, when you have leaky gut, those endotoxins are going to seep out into your bloodstream, into all parts of your body, can be impacted by LPS and brain health, right? So getting the blood chemistry, getting micronutrient gut health, really important. Genetic analysis we talked about to learn more about your metabolism, your response to exercise, nutrient metabolism, caffeine, if you're a slower, fast metabolizer, predisposition to certain health conditions scares people, but I think it might help us prevent from not having an issue with it. So I think it's great. Muscle fiber, if you're more predisposed to fast twitch or slow twitch muscle fibers. I know I'm more of a slow twitcher, and as females, we age, we lose We don't have as much fast twitch. So that's why I'm focusing on more sprint intervals that are 20, 30 seconds and not doing, 2, 3, 4 minute intervals. Even swimming today, we were doing these 200s, trying to build up speed, doing 200-meter fast. And I rather just do 25 meters because that's where I need more work. So you have to kind of change your program sometimes and customize it for your needs and goals. And then, of course, PNOE, metabolic analysis that you can get done somewhere near you, or come see me in North San Diego. Have a wonderful time here while you're coming for a test. But it's measuring that VO2 max. Again, we want to know what that number is. It's baseline data, and then we set a program up to get that number improved. Also, we're looking at metabolic preferences for fat or carbohydrate oxidation and looking at what heart rate, what zones you are, where you're burning different fuel sources, one zone to zone 5. Figure out what those numbers are for you and what heart rates are your current zones. So zone 2 will change the more you train in it. So we want to figure out the nutrition for fueling and optimizing fat loss, muscle gain goals, strategic timing of your carbohydrate intake when you're doing the higher intensity workout. We want to look at all this. Now, personalized fitness program and nutrition program, looking at your macros, we can do all that by putting all this together. So it's this integrative approach of data, the functional labs, the genetics, metabolic assessment, looking all that more from a holistic method approach to improve the longevity markers. Body composition, we want to improve our muscle health as part of longevity, right? So we want to look at metabolic health markers for longevity, not just VO2 max, and looking at our muscle health. So looking at your lean body mass, fat mass to lean, but really not counting calories as much as looking at nutrient density. So we're getting our protein, quality foods, getting enough protein, and what kind of workouts to improve our lean body mass rather than losing weight and losing muscle. We want to not lose that muscle. So how can we improve that VO2 max? We want to look at what type of training we can do based on genetics, but what else can you do to improve your VO2 max? Let's dive into that.
Hey, my fellow aging endurance athletes, just a reminder, if you like what you listened to today, make sure to share this episode with your community. Head to debbiepotts.net to set up a free discovery call to learn more about my personalized coaching programs, especially if you are on a mission as myself to improve the aging process and start training to be my best self when I am 80, 90 years old. So I am on a mission to live my best life and be my best self the second half of my life. So if you're on the same mission as me, head over to my website and YouTube channel to learn more ways to improve the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method.
So just to review, VO2 max, now, is a measure of maximal oxygen uptake. It's considered one of the best indicators of your cardiorespiratory fitness. And this is what we look at as a marker of longevity. Higher respiratory levels measured by your VO2 max have been consistently linked to reduced risk of mortality and longer lifespan. So Dr. Rhonda Patrick and, of course, Huberman and Peter Attia have lots of YouTube videos sharing research on VO2 max. Dr. Rhonda Patrick has a great one called Protocols for Increasing VO2 Max and Why Zone 2 Training Might Not Be Enough by Dr. Rhonda Patrick on Found My Fitness Clips. So good. I'm glad people are doing this because everyone's podcast is way too long. And I don't want to listen to a 2-3 hour podcast. So if they're doing these little 15-minute ones, it's great like that. And you can get little chapters on the side. What is VO2 max? How to increase VO2 max? How much time to dedicate? And VO2 max training protocols. So how to measure VO2 max, we talked about, but how you can improve that number once you get it. So she goes over some research. And I would again go back and listen to Dr. Stacy Sims as she talks about women are not small men. And a lot of the research here, I don't know the one she's showing right here exactly, are not often done on women. they're mostly done on men. So you have to look at always research studies. Who was the test done on? What age, gender, what's their current program, what's their back history of training. So a lot of us endurance athletes, as myself, I'm 50, how old am I? 51, 52 years old, that I started doing Ironman when I was 29 years old. I started doing marathons before that and long distance cycling. So I started doing endurance training probably when I was 25 years old. So that's 27 years. I already know how to go long and slow. So zone 2, I did maffetone training. That's how I did really well in races that are long, because I could pace myself and pick it up. Now, I was very efficient at burning fat and could train at high level before my metabolic crossover point, because I trained that way and I learned that early on and did metabolic testing back in 2005, 2010. So I've kind of figured this out a long time ago. But as women, when we're aging, we don't need as much zone 2. So when you hear all this information, how to best train your VO2 max, you want to look at, okay, am I a man or a woman? What age am I? What phase of life I'm in as a female? And women don't need as much zone 2 from birth, because at birth, men versus women, we are built more for endurance. And men are better at more fast twitch muscle fibers, the women. But then we can look at our genetics as well, then really figure out what's best. So the different research protocols on this video she shares is pretty interesting. Again, endurance athletes for years. This is why I always thought it was funny zone 2 started being such a big buzzword, because we've been doing this forever, and Phil Maffetone is probably cracking up because he's talked about this for 30 years, and we've talked about max aerobic function is your 180 minus age plus or minus 5 beats. That's your high end of your training zone, which is your zone 2. And as endurance athletes training for cycling events, marathon, trail running, Ironman, triathlons, long, slow stuff, long, steady distance, we're 80% in zone 2. And then we add in speed work when ready or tempo work. Now, as we're older, I'm looking for myself as a female athlete aging. I'm doing less long, slow stuff and just doing longer workout Saturday, Sunday, bike and run, and then just trying to do short and sweet, fast stuff and more time lifting weights. My program has changed, so you need to embrace the aging process and change how you train if you're not getting the desired results. So if whatever you're doing, if it's not working for you, hit that pause button and figure out, let's test and figure out what's missing. What are you needing to do? Where are your areas of opportunity where you need to prioritize to get that minimal effective dose? So we want to look at these workouts she talks about, Rhonda Patrick, Dr. Rhonda, the Norwegian workouts of 4x4 workouts and 1 minute on, 1 minute off training protocols to increase your VO2 max. Then she talks about the research of tying between VO2 max and life expectancy, how to measure VO2 max, the Cooper test, or we talked about the Pinoy metabolic test, and why zone 2 cardio doesn't guarantee VO2 max improvement. So looking at your training zones if we can test you, this is why you need to test, because you're just guessing and wasting time, I think, the way people train. They train too much in zone 3. So when I test people, they think where they think their zone 2 is not zone 2. So if you're trying to build your zone 2 up where you're burning more fat for fuel, you're working on your endurance, improving your mitochondria function, then you should test. Zone 5, you can probably tell, as I was trying to do it today, going all out hard as you can. Do your max. Like if I run to that sign down the street, I'm looking at the sign going, hurry up, and get there faster. You can't continue that. So you kind of know your zone 5, but just going all out. It's hard to measure with the heart rate monitor because it doesn't pick up that fast. So doing a metabolic test so you know what your zone 2 is, your zone 1 is below that, obviously, and then tempo, zone 3, and zone 4. But I think it's important to know what your zones are to get the benefit of each zone and knowing how to train to improve that VO2 max. So yes, VO2 max is a gold standard, but how you need to improve that number is this missing part of the conversation. So there's the resistance training, the cardio training, and the interval training, and how much time you need to spend in each zone. That will vary based on what you have been doing. And again, as I said, women are different, as well as women are different at different phases in life with their hormones. So when we do PNOE testing, we're getting the 5 zones, and then we can figure that out. But what you need to do to improve your VO2 max, you can see the protocols Dr. Rhonda talks about, but then I think we need to break that down again. Is that for everybody? What else can you do? There's Tabata, 20 seconds on, 10 seconds out, off for 10 rounds or 8 rounds. That's what we've done. It's 4 minutes. There's a Wingate test that's super old. We did that in college. It's 30 seconds all out against a constant force. You do that 4 to 6 times. That's 18 to 27 minutes total time. There's conventional 60 seconds all out, 60 seconds rest. You do that 10 times. That's a 20-minute workout. Or there's 4 minutes that you're doing hard, probably your zone 4 for these different protocols. And then recovery is 3 minutes. And you do that 4 times. So that would be the 4x4 workout. So that takes 25 minutes. So you can look at the minimal effective dose to improve your VO2 max is probably spent doing 2 workouts during the week of these intervals. Might they be more zone 5 sprint intervals or more zone 4 to get those benefits? So you can look at examples of reports that we do with PNOE, but I think it's helpful to find someone near you to test you, because the reports are pretty cool. And to get that visual aid of where you are and what you could be doing is pretty amazing. So they get the AMR test, is active metabolism test, and you get this 25-page report. We're measuring aerobic capacity, cardiovascular fitness, high intensity performance, recovery capacity, fat burning efficiency, movement economy, metabolic rate, breathing and cognition, and breathing instability. So we're looking at that. Then we're getting biological age. And then each marker, we can find out where do you rate based on your age, gender, height, weight. So if that's a limitation or even neutral or severe limitation, of course, we want to focus on that area. So we want to look at your history and look at what your goals are. So if you want to improve your biological age, there's 3 factors that impact your biological age for PNOE's way they do it. VO2 max, your fat burning efficiency, and your metabolic rate. They take those scores, those 3 scores, that will impact your age. So if you want to reduce your age or increase your age, this is looking at your biological age versus chronological age. So it estimates based on your VO2 max, fat burning efficiency, and metabolic rate. And we want to look at the numbers, but again, here, this is what you are, but how are you going to get better? What are you going to do about it? And then we set up goals. So the aerobic capacity score that we do is calculate based on your VO2 peak, which is the maximum amount of oxygen your body can absorb. So the higher VO2 peak, the higher the aerobic capacity score is. So that's what we're looking at, how to improve it, and that's going to be the interval training or endurance training. So we want to look at that as well as the cardiovascular fitness level. That's your O2 pulse. And then we want to look at your high intensity performance. So this is where we can see where do you rank based on right now, and then we can really figure out what you need to do more of. So the high intensity performance marker is interesting. It's calculated by assessing how well your lungs supply oxygen and how well the heart pumps it into the body across exercise intensities during a VO2 max test. Now this is reflected 2 metrics, the O2 pulse, that's your oxygen pumped in every heartbeat, and your VO2 over BF, your breathing frequency. So this reflects your oxygen absorbed per breath cycle. So if you don't score well in this, all these markers will help us figure out your VO2 max number to improve your aging process, whatever you want to look at. Maybe your biological age you want to improve. So then we can figure out, what do you as a unique individual need? More respiratory cardiovascular system improvement. You want more zone 3 and zone 4 intervals to improve your respiratory and cardiovascular performance. Endurance. Heavy endurance training, zone 4, trains your heart and lungs to operate effectively during high intensity states. So then we look at recovery marker. In high intensity intervals, zone 5, most effective ones for enhancing mitochondria density, fat burning efficiency, and recovery capacity. So if you're not well at recovery, this shows me a big part of this aging part. If you score low in recovery capacity, that means you're not really doing interval training that people say they are, because they're not bringing their heart rate back down to zone 1 before they go back up to zone 3, 4, or 5, whatever you're doing, long, medium, or short intervals. So high intensity intervals are more your zone 5. And then if you're doing endurance training, zone 2, that's improving fat burn efficiency. But if you want to improve your mitochondria density and fat burning efficiency and recovery, that'll be more the intervals. So it depends, right? What do you need to do more of? Everyone gives recommendations says this is what to do for VO2 max, or actually, I don't really hear much what to do with VO2 max. It's more, here's get your VO2 max tested. But now, what do you need to do? So then you get your training zones. What are your 5 zones? When to use zone 5, because that's improving your VO2 max. Those are short intervals. Do you need zone 4? Those are medium intervals, heavy endurance. Do you need zone 3? That's long intervals, medium endurance. Base training is zone 2. Do you need more time there? It enhances fat burning efficiency, and good cellular condition improves recovery capacity. So if you're not good at zone 2, you're not probably efficient at burning fat for fuel. You probably are doing all your supposed zone 2 training, but you're really in zone 3. So your fat burning efficiency isn't great. It's an area of opportunity. So this is why I say, stop guessing. Get someone to test you if you really care. Not so much about racing. I don't think people should do testing because they're just focused on racing. That's just a limited % of us. Everyone, I believe, should include this type of metabolic testing as they do with blood chemistry panel testing and longevity markers as insulin and blood or GI test, gut test, food sensitivities. Doing these type of things are investment in your health, investment in your longevity. So you don't know what you don't know, but if you want to be your best self in the future, we want to get your blood analyzed. We want to know what our insulin is. We want to know what our genetic SNPs are so we can improve our future self. So those are just some rabbit holes I've been going down, what genetics we need to look at, because that will help us figure out when we correlate that data with our PNOE metabolic test, your blood chemistry panel, and then tying that with nutrition, what foods you should eat or not eat, your digestion. Looking at all that together is truly precision medicine, personalized programming. So check out Dr. Rhonda Patrick. She's got some great information. Again, that's Protocols for Increasing VO2 Max. It was from a longer podcast, but I know she's adding in research. There's lots on there. So once you start looking up on the science of how to improve your VO2 max, she interviewed Dr. Martin Gabali, and there's some other people I've been listening to, but that was a good one. The science of vigorous exercise, longevity and brain benefits of vigorous exercise. But I think what's missing, here's another one, Peter Attia's 80% zone 2, 20% VO2 max training protocol. I think you have to really remember Men and women are different, and we shouldn't be saying everyone needs to train this way. So this is like everyone saying, here's the supplement protocol I'm taking. Drives me nuts because everyone's different. And we shouldn't just be taking 20 different random supplements. They should have a purpose. And then maybe you cycle those in and out. So we want to test and not guess. Let me know what questions you have if you want to learn more on a different topic. And I'll share more of what I'm learning at my Wild Health Precision Medicine Fellowship Program. Talk soon. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Low Carb Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, let us know on Facebook or at debbiepotts.net. You can help us continue and grow by leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks again, and see you next time.